Welcome, everyone, to our first live show of the Chicago Football Connection podcast this offseason. Hopefully, not the last. I'm your host, Steve Letizia. Follow me on Twitter at CFC Bears, joined by my co host, Luke O'Grady. Follow him on Twitter at Luke O'Grady. And we have a lot to talk about today. We were planning on doing this tonight anyway, talking about Senior Bowl and Bears QB rumors and Super Bowl and stuff. And then a bomb just dropped, and they announced that 3 Bears are making to the Hall of Fame. So we'll figure we'll start there. So 3 new Bears Hall of Famers. Julius Peppers, Steve Michael, and the greatest punt and kick returner of all time, Devin Anytime Hester. So, Luke, we're just going to start right into it. How do you feel about these 3 new Hall of Famers?
Amazing, man.
How
so good. Not? I think me and you, we grew up as we would have been big Devin Hester fanboys, right? He was right. He was one of the guys that we were falling in love with when we were 8 and 9 years old. But it's so good for a couple of reasons because the Steve McMichael one is so sick. It's because he's maybe it's because there's this expectation that he is on the way out, but it's such a blessing because he was sick, and I feel like he was really underrated to fan bases that weren't in the NFL, and he's an amazing person. If you guys don't know Steve McMichael, Steve McMichael went on and was a commentator in WCW and those crazy fun days, and it was them versus the WWE. And he was also the kind of defensive tackle that you'd want in 2024 playing back in the 80s, a kind of undersized, quick fighting, pass rushing defensive tackle. Unbelievable player. I think he's top 5 all time in Bears pass rushing. Yeah. And he's also, for those that aren't aware, I think he's battling, is it ALS?
ALS, yeah.
And he's he's not doing the best. I think he's his ability to even stand on his own is inhibited. And I think a lot of his life is in and out of hospitals at the moment. So for him to get this while he's still with us is so fucking sick. He's another one of those 85 Bears. He was one that made that cog move.
Yeah, it sucks that he had to get sick to get the recognition that he already deserved. I do think it's part of it, but I don't think he's undeserving at all. I think he absolutely should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago. It reminds me a lot of I'm a big Cubs fan, so it reminds me a lot of Ron Santo when Ron Santo finally got to the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, that happened after he passed away, so I'm really happy that Mongo got in before he passed away. So he was able to, cherish that with his family, and I'm sure he's having a hell of a night tonight wherever he is. So that was really nice to see. He was, like you said, those the 1980 D tackles who were 260 pounds, running around out there. It's crazy to see. I mean, he's definitely a guy who got overlooked because the Bears defense that year was just so good. The 1985 Bears defense was so good. It's how many? Okay, this guy's in the Hall of Fame. This guy's in the Hall of Fame. This guy's in the Hall of Fame. How many Hall of Famers could be on one team? But that defense was so legitimately good that they did have 5, 6 Hall of Famers. Mm-hmm. So really great to see him. And then the other guys, Julius Peppers, Devin Hester, that's my childhood right there. That's the Bears teams I grew up watching. I never watched. I wasn't alive for Steve McMichael, but my first Bears jersey was a Walter Payton jersey. Second was Julius Peppers. Third was Devin Hester. So
what a day.
So it was just seeing those guys get in. I mean, yeah, it makes me feel really old, but it just brings back such good memories, even though those teams never won anything. But those teams were just so fun to watch. I feel with the exception of 2018, we really haven't had a team that's wow, that team is just so fun to watch. Such great.
I think about that all the time, and I think about how much it felt like we lost whatever consistency we had for when we were growing up, it felt at the very least the Bears would always be competitive in those games, and and you kind of felt later on maybe that was the Lovie Smith effect. But that's what that was the kind of the feeling that I have with those with the Julius Peppers and with the Charles Tillmans, who probably deserves a Hall of Fame look. And with the Brian Urlachers and with the Devin Hesters, it's with those guys on the team, man, the Bears were literally always in football games. The Bears were getting blown out.
I mean, that was the last time we've had sustained success, from 2004 to 2013 or something, almost a decade of sustained success. Yeah, we didn't win the Super Bowl, but you went into those years every offseason with expectations that we were at least going to make the playoffs next year. And with the exception of 2018. We haven't had that. We had that 1 year where we made the playoffs, won the NFC North, but besides that, man, it's been bad. It just makes
you know what's crazy? I think I sometimes forget is we made the playoffs in 2019.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We did,
lost
but like
that playoff game,
snuck into it,
and it's like, yeah, I think about that all the time. Where it's like, yeah, I guess we made the playoffs.
That's actually very interesting to bring that up because if we didn't sneak in the playoffs, because didn't we? Nagy got another year, right? Nagy and Pace got one more year after that because they just barely snuck in the playoffs. Like, I wonder if we did make the playoffs in 2019.
That offseason,
would
they draft
they
Justin
both be
Fields.
gone? Do we trade up for Trubisky? Not Trubisky, for Fields the next year?
You know what's crazy is even now, like having probably done the Fields era, is that like as a process thing, I like the Fields move.
Yeah.
But I will say that, and I wonder if this is true of you as well. My experience with Justin Fields has made me changed the way that I look at the quarterback position and like kind of what's expected of the quarterback position.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I had no problem with the move at the time. The only problem I had with the move at the time was that we were letting a lame duck GM and head coach do it.
Yeah.
Totally. Like if we had a brand new head coach, brand new GM, and they were making that move, I was pumped at the time, but it probably would have had a better chance of working out.
Yeah,
but we'll get into the quarterback stuff.
We did the classic make a quarterback do a second offense in the second year, which we always do. But yeah, totally.
But we'll get back to that. But like just going back to the Hall of Famers, because I do want to make sure they all get their dues. Like, you know, we're talking about like Steve McMichael. We only know him from like highlights and stuff. But like I sometimes take this for granted, but if you are a young Bears fan, you're 15, 18 years old, whatever it is, and you don't remember Devin Hester or Julius Peppers, which seems crazy. Yeah. But like, please go to YouTube if you haven't already and watch both those guys Bears highlights because they're absolutely incredible.
Sick, man. And he also was good for like 2 picks and a pick 6 every year.
Yeah, he was so good. He was
an athlete.
So good.
Like swatting balls out of the air and catching his own tips.
He was one of my favorite players when he was on the Panthers. I just always loved Julius Peppers because I would be that my brother would pick the Bears in Madden, so I would have to pick another team, and the Panthers were the team that I always picked because they had Julius Peppers. So that's the joys of being a younger brother. I didn't get to pick the Bears, but man, he was my favorite player. And then when the Bears actually signed him, remember it was the first day
the free agency. I remember like the week
at midnight. They showed up at his house,
like talking about like who he thought. He was like, seriously, like I think the Bears are going to make it run at Julius Peppers, and I was like, this is the height of luxury. Like this is crazy because it didn't like it still doesn't happen. But like for context, that would have been like if Nick for people that didn't watch, that would have been like if Nick Bosa got to the end of his rookie contract with the 49ers. And they were like, all right, you can go join another team. And then the Bears signed him. Like, it was like, you guys are getting the hottest young pass rusher in the NFL.
Yeah. It just doesn't happen anymore. Those guys just don't make it to free agency. Like, a legitimate Hall of Famer, confirmed now, just made it to, they just let him go to free agency. They didn't tag him, trade him. They just let him go.
He did.
And the Bears were there to swoop him up.
We'll take him.
Yeah. And I mean, they like, we're going to add Julius Peppers to a defense with Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and Charles Tillman.
Adewale and Gunleye.
Yeah. Man,
so many dogs on that defense. Chris Harris, Tim Jennings was taking 6 picks back a year.
Yeah. Yeah, that was unreal defense.
And then obviously Devin Hester was on those teams as well.
Yeah, and then Devin Hester, I mean, the greatest
kick returner of all time. Like
no question.
Like if you guys don't like it almost is like the Seinfeld effect where like if you grew up watching Devin Hester, I didn't even realize at the moment. Like no one's ever taken 4 punt backs in a season ever once. And Devin Hester did it. Didn't he do it in back-to-back seasons? He went 4 and then 5 the next season.
It was crazy. Yeah. I mean, what the things he did will never be done again. Like,
no.
The rules are changing as part of that, but the other part of that is just Devin Hester was just so ridiculous. Never be done again. Punt return, kick return. He also was a decent wide receiver. I mean, he should have never been a number 1 wide receiver. That was the Bears.
But in the offense, like go type in Devin Hester receiving highlights.
They're fun.
The video certainly exists, and he was sick. And those games were fun. And like, look at the situations. He had a lot of times where like he was like the one that was like putting the icing on the cake to win the games for the Bears.
Yeah, and we talk. I mean, like the Bears did him a disservice offensively. Like when he went to the Falcons that year, I don't like to talk about it, but they used him like very creatively, how the Bears should have been using him for the last decade.
I know.
And he had a really kind of a resurgence because they used him in the way he should have been used. Unfortunately, he was like 32 years old at the time, and couldn't sustain it. But if the Bears would have just gotten him more scheme touches like that, man, what could
The
have
Bears
been?
had a lot of bunglings at offensive coordinator in their day, didn't they? You know what's funny is you shared a great play of that one-hand stab he has in the back of the end zone against the Cowboys. And it's so funny. I watched that play, and I the first thing I thought was, "Yo, this play design is so whack."
Yeah,
I was like, I was thinking if the Lions were running this today, the first look would be a drag across, and then it would like naturally come back to Hester there. And if you watch it, it's Hester the whole time.
Yeah,
if Hester's not there, it's just panic.
The play calling in like the 2000s, like teens, whatever, is always it was just like 4 routes. They didn't have anything to do with each other. They didn't have anything to do with each other. They don't work off each other. Just 4 routes. Whoever gets open, throw it to them.
And it was basically like, yo, it was like telling the quarterback, you know who your guys are, so just look to whatever side of the field you think is going to be open. It wasn't like the timing progression. I mean, we're probably going to get told we're wrong. Probably are wrong. But either way, some of it did look really bad, and that was a good example of it.
I think saying that the Bears offense in 2010 not being good, I don't think anyone's going to argue with us there. So I think we're in good shape. But we have okay, one last thing about Devin Hester that we had to talk about it. Returning the opening kickoff in a Super Bowl for a touchdown.
He was a moments guy. He always was. He was
just those pictures.
It was like
standing there with
the moment in the Cardinals thing where it was like, fuck, like I mean, if something were to happen, like now would kind of be the time. And then he did it, and it was like in the Super Bowl, it was like he's not gonna do it. He's not, and then he did it. And even like I was saying, like his offensive touchdowns, like he has he has some OT winners. He has like a last second like 60-yarder versus like the Seahawks where he like walks it off. Like he's always been a guy that when you need a play from him, like you can kind of like the first punt he caught in the NFL, took it back for a touchdown. Like he's always been a moments guy, and that was the biggest moment. A buddy of mine shared a video of it to me today, and someone was saying like this was one of those last great moments where people still used flash cameras.
Yeah,
because
that's so true.
The video is so good. The flashes are going crazy. It's one of my favorite football plays, football moments ever. There he goes, Devin Hester.
And at that point, I was thinking, holy shit, the Bears are going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, we pick off.
But we won't talk about the rest of that game.
We pick off Peyton Manning on the next drive too.
Yeah.
All
right, I can't think about it.
Yeah.
One more thing about Devin Hester, though, because I think this is funny. So, for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Cleveland. My parents were from Chicago, but we moved to Cleveland for my dad's job. So, I don't know if anyone remembers the name Josh Cribbs, whether he played for the Browns, good punt returner for the Browns. But I remember growing up and talking with my friends, we had intense arguments about who was the better return man, Josh Cribbs or Devin Hester. I need to text all of them right now. But do you still think Josh Cribbs was better than Devin Hester? I think I won that argument. I got
Josh Cribbs right now.
So that's
the thing. Like at the time, like Josh Cribbs was nice.
Yeah, Josh Cribbs was great. But he was
Josh Cribbs doesn't have those moments.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, not comparable. I just thought that was funny thinking back about that.
Sorry, Josh.
All right. Anything else to say about any of the Hall of Famers?
No, it's nice. Me and you were talking about it before we went on. Like the Bears have the most Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And like, to some extent, like we also have a lot of like NFL championships, which is like a really whack thing to be proud of. But having the most Hall of Famers is something that like, honestly, like as a Bears fan, I feel pretty like proud about.
Yeah.
And just adding to the legacy. We were saying like, I wonder how Julius Peppers gets categorized because he's probably a Panther first and foremost, but he put on like some of the best tape that'll be in his Hall of Fame highlight reel. Or like his best years were probably with the Bears.
Yeah, you could definitely argue that. Yeah, but yeah, I think he ultimately goes in as a Panther. But I mean, Hester obviously, no question.
Hester and Mingo, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, they're for sure. All right, so other thing we got actually a couple topics we're going to talk about. So let's keep it moving. That was about 15 minutes. So next thing we want to talk about was the Senior Bowl, NFL draft. Obviously, we're both big draft people, so we want to talk a lot about that this offseason. I actually went to the Senior Bowl last week, so I got to see some prospects firsthand. Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah, tell me about that. You went to the Senior Bowl, right? Because that's a pretty cool, like, it's, I know, like you were saying, like, anybody could just buy a ticket and show up, but it's like, all right, but not everybody does. You did it. And
so
have you done like the experience where you watched and heard about reports from the Senior Bowl and kind of found out how much stock people put into it? and now you've kind of gone and done it yourself. Like, what was that experience like to actually see, the players and then see what the response is and kind of get, okay, that's what it means when someone's really buzzing at camp.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got like actual media credentials, which was cool. So we got to get pretty close to field, and yeah, I mean, I went with Robert Schmitz and Butkus Stats Q. I always forget his last name, but no, it was really cool. I mean, yeah, you're right. You get to actually you're there when guys are like making a name for themselves, and it's difficult when you're actually there. I didn't really realize this, but I probably should have. That like you can't watch everyone. It's not like on the broadcast where just goes through and you can get a little sneak peek at everyone. So you basically just have to like pick a position group and go with it, because otherwise you're just running back and forth and you're missing more than you see. So Q and I kind of watched more of the offensive line, defensive line. Robert did like wide receiver, cornerbacks. But yeah, it's when you see guy and there are people around you and guy makes a nice block and you could just hear like all the reactions from it, which is really cool because when you're watching the broadcast,
someone made a play.
Yeah, or even more so, you hear people on the other side of the stands like going crazy, like, wow, I bet a receiver just made a nice grab or something. But you just hear all the people running, and you would just like someone would make a nice block, and someone would turn to you and be like, "That was a really nice block." You'd be like, "Yeah, it was," and it's just like I don't know, it's just cool just being there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I would definitely go back. It was also really cool because with the media credentials, you get to get on the field and interview some players. Which was cool, but and I did a little bit of that, but I kind of wanted to stay out of the way. Like I only talked to someone if no one else was talking to them, because there are people there who are doing their job. Like I don't want to get away, and they're also like you're separated from the scouts with just like a wire that's on the ground, and like the actual like real scouts from like teams.
Yep.
And I don't want to go up to a player and start talking to him when he's trying to get to the Bears scout that's 5 feet away.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I go talk to them. You're like, that's more important to you. But it was cool just being down there and just like you don't realize how big these people are until you're right next to them and you're interviewing Tyler Davis, and he's only 6'2", 350 pounds. He's not even the biggest guy there, and he's towering over me. And
he's only 6'2", 350.
Yeah, like undersized defensive tackle. So yeah, it was awesome.
How crazy is that? We'll sit here in a living room and go, guy's undersized.
He's only 280 pounds. What are you gonna do with that?
That's so funny. Yeah, he's only 6'2", 280.
But yeah, a lot of guys. I don't know if we just want to go quickly through.
Yeah, I would say who would you? I mean, who would you say right off the hop? Who were your biggest risers? Who were guys that maybe you thought had a chance to show out and did, or you showed up, they weren't really on your radar, and when you left, you went, "Fuck, I gotta watch this guy again."
Yeah, so I'll stick with the offensive line because, as I mentioned, like the first 2 days, I basically just watched offensive line, defensive line.
Cool.
The third day, I kind of went over by the wide receivers, DBs, just to get a look at other guys. Yep. But I'd say I like most of the information I have is like offensive, defensive line guys. So some guys who stood out, like obviously Jackson Powers Johnson, just like dominated.
Really,
like every single rep of his
he was the best O-line there.
Probably if not the best, like second best. Like he was. I think he probably was the best offensive line. I mean, there's a couple other guys that stood out, but every single rep of his was just perfect, like almost. And like you see, like the left tackles and right tackles like taking reps, and they have their nice like smooth kick slide. He was almost doing like a kick slide from like the center position. Like that's how quickly he moved his feet to like stay in front of guys. And just was not getting beat by anyone.
As soon as the Senior Bowl happened, he was pretty much in every the first round of every mock draft I was seeing. So it was like, okay, he must have really had a good week.
Yeah, he had a good week. He is going in the first round now, and like I do think this happens every year where guys start rising up, and then they keep rising up, and then eventually they come back down a little bit to where it evens out before the draft. So I still don't know if he's going to go first round. If he does, it might be like the back half of the first round. I'm hoping he goes like top of the second. Maybe the Bears could have a pick there. So he was really good. Another guy was, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Is he Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma?
Yeah, I actually just watched his stuff for the first time today, man. He was really like.
What did you think of him?
Like, if I had to give it like a catchphrase, I would say he didn't have any wasted movements, and he looked really strong and like to the point. Like he was pretty impressive. Like it didn't it looked like really like I guess technical.
Yeah, he's been like rising up boards a lot because he's just so damn athletic and like you said, just smooth, no wasted movements. Like former tight end, former quarterback. He's playing like offensive tackle now. Like,
Yeah.
so he's been playing it for a few years now. But yeah, he looked really good. I mean, I think
is he really tall?
he's 6'7", 328 pounds, which
Yeah, okay,
328 pounds is crazy because he looked like he looked like he was 6'7", but if you just look at him, I'd be like, that guy's 6'7", 280. Maybe.
Right.
Like he's
It's like,
I thought he was like,
kind of like the Shaq effect when you're like, what do you mean Shaq's 350 pounds? Like it looks like
yeah,
that now, but like that's what Shaq weighed when Shaq
when,
was like athletic and could move and stuff.
right. So 328 pounds is like one of the heavier offensive linemen. And
yeah.
he looked really good. I mean, like, he was moving real well, he was long, like yeah, he's gonna go first round. I've seen a lot of people getting in like the top 15. Like he just looked really good.
Is this tackle class crazy?
This tackle class is absolutely insane.
Because what do you think about this is something I'm excited to ask you about, the Oklahoma State guy,
Oregon State guy.
What's his name?
Taliese Fuaga.
Yeah, talk to me about him.
So I was actually going to talk about.
I've got a lot of mixed opinions. I haven't got to watch his tape yet, but I've seen a lot of really polar opposite opinions about this guy.
Yeah, so I was actually going to talk about him next because you mentioned, is there a guy there that like didn't live up to expectations, and he was definitely it. Like,
really?
I watched him a little bit pre-Senior Bowl, and I was like, well, let me start over. Pre-Senior Bowl, he was getting, and even still currently getting like top 10 talk. Yeah. Like he's competing with Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu and JC Latham. Like he's in that conversation. And I was like, okay, I'm going to watch him. And I was like, okay, this guy looks pretty good. I'm not drafting this guy top 10. Really? Like he's athletic. He gets out of his stance nice. Like he has a mean streak. I like all that stuff. But like as a pass blocker, he just has like, there's a lot to be desired. As a run blocker, he looks a little bit better. So I'm like, okay, if you're betting on the athleticism and you're betting on the size and you're betting on the mean streak, I'm much more comfortable doing that at pick like 20, 22 than I am pick 10 or whatever he's being projected at. And then at the Senior Bowl, he just looked like a guy. Like he had his moments. He won a lot of reps, but he also lost some reps. And if you're a top 10 tackle at the Senior Bowl,
you just call him a jag. Just
what?
a guy.
Well, no, I don't want to say he's just a guy. My point is, if you're a top 10 tackle in the draft,
yes,
and you're going up Senior Bowl, and you're the Senior Bowl, who usually it's day 2 guys because a lot of the top guys don't go, like Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Braylon Trice, like all these. Chop Robinson, all these top tier pass rushers weren't there. So you're going up against day 2 guys. You better win every rep if you're a top 10.
Because you don't even need to be a senior to be at the Senior Bowl this year. So technically, you could have had the entire class.
So, and he just looked good, but he was losing reps. And if you're a top 10 tackle, you should be winning every rep there.
Right.
Or you should be a freak athlete who's new to the position like Tyler Guyton is. He gets a little bit more leeway because he's just, his ceiling's crazy. Fuaga, I thought, looked still like a first rounder, but not that top half of the first round.
Right. So, if you like today, if you had to pick one of those 2 players with your first round pick, who would you take?
Fuaga, Guyton.
That's a good one. Are we
saying like if the Bears? Let's say if it's the Bears. Let's say Braxton Jones.
You're the GM.
I'm the GM of the Bears, and
for some reason at pick 74, both of them are there. So obviously it'll be one of them.
Yep. Okay. And then we're saying Jones is out and taking one of these guys.
I don't even care. Jones is totally healthy, but as far as your board is concerned, you have to take one of them.
I'd probably go Guyton. I think Fuaga is more ready to play right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But Guyton
gives you like it's almost nice because you're like if Braxton Jones is there, it's like we don't need Guyton to be the guy yet, but he has got some stuff.
Right. Exactly. So I think I think in my final rankings, Guyton will be over for Fuaga.
Interesting. So you have Guyton first round grade?
I haven't graded him. I've only watched one Oklahoma game, but he looked really athletic. But based on like his athleticism, what he's going to do at the combine, I'm guessing he would have a first round grade.
Nice.
Once I finalize it.
When is the combine?
I just looked at this up. It's late February, so February like 26th to like March 4th or something like that.
Such a fun week in football.
Yeah.
It really is. I like it's always been like a week I've loved because for years they've done such a good job of making it a spectacle. And you remember when they were first starting to do the run stuff?
Yeah.
Just so good. Rich Eisen going to run a 40 for us this year. And they were doing the simulcams.
It's going to be like in like 40 years, and Rich Eisen's going to be 90 years old, is still running that 40-yard dash.
In 40 years, dude, they're going to be showing us the slowest quarterback versus the fastest lineman and the simulcam every time. Being like, look at the big guy go.
And I'll love it. I'll love every second.
Always.
Other guys who stood out,
just
on offensive line. Other guys, Roger Rosengarten from Washington looked so good.
Position?
He played right tackle for Washington. He played both left and right tackle at the Senior Bowl, and he looked really good. Q and I both thought he really stood out. Christian Haynes from UConn, the guard, that dude's a stud. And I think he can play center too. So that's someone the Bears might, if the Bears are picking late second, maybe I don't know. I don't know if he gets to 75, but if they pick up a second round pick and they want him to play center or guard, that could be a good one.
It feels more and more likely that the picks that we have at the moment, it's unlikely that those will be the picks that we end up having. There'll be some sort of trade that will adjust how we're picking in the second and third rounds.
Either Fields is going to get traded, or they're going to trade the first overall pick. No matter, we're not getting in that argument right now. Wherever you land on the quarterback position, one of those two things is happening, and you will have a second round pick. So for sure, the Bears will have a second pick. They also could possibly trade down from 9.
That's almost certainly the case. The Bears will have a second round pick, which is
I don't know yet how they're going to get it. I have an idea, but they'll have a second round pick.
Right.
I also thought Kingsley Eguakon from Florida, a center. He wasn't on my rate. I heard of him, but I didn't really watch him. He looked really good. He's been playing both center and guard. So there's just a couple of guys on the offensive line who look pretty good.
Any defensive linemen jump out to you? Or
the only one who I would say
didn't jump out to you?
Yeah, the only guy who I'd say would really say oh, this guy made himself some money was Darius Robinson. Missouri.
Everybody was talking about him.
He was just so good. He was a lot more athletic than I was expecting him to be. Not that I didn't think he was athletic, but he was looking pretty bendy and for a guy who's 6'5", what did he measure? 6'5", 286, I think it was. So
that's a fun size.
Yeah, 35-inch arms. The guy is just so long and athletic. He's definitely. I think he's going to be in that first round conversation when it's all said and done.
Wasn't Leatu there?
He was there. The first day.
Would you say that Darius Robinson looked better?
I would say over the course of 3 days, yeah. So Latu actually didn't feel like he looked very good the first day. The very first day. It was kind of the same thing. The same thing with Fuaga. It's kind of the same thing with Fuaga. Whereas you're in the top 10 conversation. I need to see something. And then he didn't really do much first day. Second day he came out and looked amazing. He looked like a top 10 player for sure. Okay. And then he sat out the third day. He didn't play the third day. But Darius Robinson, he could have easily sat out that third day. A lot of guys did. Jackson Powers-Johnson did. As I mentioned, Latu did. A lot of guys didn't. He could have easily sat it out and would have been fine because he dominated, and he came back out and played. Same thing with Christian Haynes on the offensive line. Both of those guys could have sat out. But I like the fact that they came back and kept going. So, in terms of a guy who didn't really impress me, and I actually did just put out a video on him, Chris Braswell from Alabama, because he didn't really do much that week. So I purposely went back to the tape, which I watched all of his tape beforehand, and I loved it. So I was like, okay, I got to watch it again because he did not do anything at the Senior Bowl. He is a bit of a grinder, yeah,
in a good way,
But his tape is still really good, so I don't know. I'm going to trust the tape on that one.
Okay, yeah. He had an underwhelming week at the Senior Bowl, you mean?
Yeah, he didn't really do much at the Senior Bowl, and he's one of the best, one of the best pass rushers there, or at least highly rated pass rushers there.
I know. We talked about it in the preview show that he was a guy that we wanted to see have a good week.
Yeah, so that was interesting, but.
And it's funny because we said before, these guys, there is an expectation from these guys that this is a really nice opportunity for them. If they can't show up and dominate, a mixed bag of opportunity where it's some of these guys are really, really bad and some of these guys are really, really good. You should have some really flashy reps at the very least.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in terms of the other guys, there are the guys who made flashes here and there, but no one really dominated. It was more, I would say there was more standouts on the offensive line than the defensive line, which makes sense given this class. As you mentioned, the offensive tackle class is just crazy.
Yeah, it's exciting.
The only other position
for the Bears to add some depth to this draft somewhere if they can.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely need to draft 2 offensive linemen at least.
Yeah, but I was going to say specifically tackle, like someone that you'd like to at least light a fire under both their tackles in some aspect.
I'd like to see them draft Rosengarten somewhere and kind of stash him, let him get stronger for a year, and then either he takes over for Jones if you don't want to pay him or something. But it's just nice to have that depth. Unfortunately, I think he's rising up boards. When I first had that thought, he was more of a day 3 guy. Now it's like, I don't know if I want to take a backup offensive tackle.
This is like that. This is like Carter Warren last year.
Yeah. So
we got hot on him, and then everybody got hot on him.
Yeah.
And now, like, honestly, you should hear about like the Jets beat. Like, they love Carter Warren. Like, they're like seriously, like he's part of the future for us, and it's like,
love that. The only other position group I would feel like confident even talking about would be like the wide receivers, because I did watch them. Like Ladd McConkey is a stud.
Talk to me about Ladd McConkey, man. Is he my like, I think I love this guy.
I'm gonna put him in my top 5. I'm gonna put him at 5, I think, is on my receiver rankings.
So it's the big 3, which I'd actually like to hear your opinion about, because from what I've heard from everybody that was there, excluding basically you, is the buzz is that O'Dunes is like pretty much on everybody's 2.
Yeah.
Like, apparently there's a lot of buzz about O'Dunes being really high.
I like him, but like when I watched Malik Neighbors, I was like, this guy is an absolute stud. Like, this is a top 5 pick.
I'm in love with Malik Neighbors.
This guy is up there.
What doesn't he do good? He moves so smoothly. He's got great hands. He tracks the ball.
Yeah, and then Odunze, like, I liked his tape too. I was like, yeah, this is a really good receiver, but like, I don't think he was close to the other 2 guys.
But was that your experience? Did you hear a lot of like Odunze praise at the Senior Bowl?
No, not really. I mean, he wasn't there, so people weren't really talking to him. But I did see
you were with the O-line, D-line more anyway.
Yeah, and I did see that on Twitter when I was just like scrolling. He was like, I think, was it Daniel Jeremiah who put him at number like 3 or something on the like total board?
The NFL Stock Exchange, which is an awesome podcast if you don't watch it. They're the PFF guys. They were saying that they were there, and like pretty much the universal expectation. They did a mock draft, like their post Senior Bowl mock draft, and then the second receiver off the board to the Giants was O'Dunes, and they were like, this was pretty. They were like, this is what everybody at the Senior Bowl was talking about, which is crazy to me. If the Bears can sit home at 9, and there's a chance that Neighbors and Bowers are going to be there, like, I mean, assuming that they possibly spend the first pick on a quarterback, that would be a very big win for the Bears, I would say.
Absolutely. I mean, any of those guys are going to step in day 1 and be a number 2 wide receiver at worst. Like, so like any of those guys complement DJ Moore well. Like, it's just a perfect fit.
Or someone like a Ladd McConkey.
Maybe you can get him a little bit later, who just dominated the one-on-ones.
Who else looked good? I know he looked great. He was like he. I think that's like a forum that lends itself totally to Ladd McConkey's game.
Oh yeah.
Maybe quicker than he is fast, a real technician when it comes to route running, great hands.
Yeah. And I was watching on like day 3, I was watching the wide receivers. It was just so funny sitting there with around everyone, and like everyone would just be like, okay, here comes Ladd McConkey, and he got to open again. Okay.
Yeah.
And like no one was like reacting to it by the end, because it was like the expectation that he was going to get open, he was going to make a catch. So he looked really good. I thought Devontae Walker got open a lot, but struggled at the catch point. And which is weird because he measured 6'1.5", 197 pounds. That's pretty good size, but he definitely plays like a guy who's 5'10", 180 pounds, which I don't love. Brendan Rice looked pretty good from USC. That might be a guy who, if you do draft Caleb Williams, you might want to get Brendan Rice. I didn't like his tape as much. I have to go back and watch it again the first time I watched it. But if Caleb Williams says, I only want to come to the Bears if you draft Brendan Rice, I'll be like, yep, okay, done. Fine. So who else looked good? Roman Wilson looked really good too for Michigan. He also sat out the 3rd day, but his first 2 days were really, really good.
Interesting.
And then I like Javon Baker too. He didn't have the great week that I thought he would, but he did make some really nice plays. There was one play in the back corner of the end zone where he just out-jumped the guy. Like, Like he's almost 6'2", 208 pounds, and he probably had like a 44-inch vertical leap. It was crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet.
So I think he's going to go to the combine. Really good. Yeah, and the Jaquan Jackson from Tulane is like a real undersized guy who's just real fast and shifty. And, those Senior Bowl 101s are just built for a guy like that.
He's like close like a Tank Dell type.
Tank Dell type, not as good as Tank Dell, but yeah.
Like a Josh Downs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably I think they're probably about the same exact size. I think actually he's probably more he's bigger than Tank Dell. He's probably more Josh Downs size. I don't remember what Josh Downs was, but he's listed at 5'9", 190.
Okay.
So a little bit bulkier than Dell was.
190 is great size. 190 is totally fine. No concerns. No notes at 190.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised by that because watching him, I could have
smaller.
He looked smaller. He looked like he was like 170. But this is the official.
Maybe he was doing the John Randall. He had the chain wrapped around his waist.
Yeah, and chugged some water right before.
Yeah.
One guy who maybe disappointed was Xavier Leggett. Like,
oh yeah,
he didn't show anything. He didn't really show anything, and then like I think he stopped after day 2. Like he didn't come out in day 3, and I didn't even notice it until the end. I was like, where was Xavier Leggett out there? And then someone was like, no, he sat out today. I was like, didn't even notice.
A lot of people really like him.
Yeah, he'll be interesting. He also came in shorter than what he's listed. So he was billed as like a DK Metcalf type, 6'3", 230. And then he laid in at 6'1", 223, which is, I think, a better size, as we often discuss. But part of the appeal of him was that he was so big and tall and fast. And so now
how much does he weigh?
223. So he's still pretty big.
So he's looking like he looks like AJ Brown or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, but not nearly the route runner that Brown is. But yeah,
so it looks like Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, there you go, perfect. And that's not a compliment.
No, well, hard to say not knowing, but there's not the best first year for Jonathan Mingo. But all right, cool. I was expecting. I think I'm starting to develop a crush on Ladd McConkey.
I would recommend it.
Seriously, like there's not a whole lot to dislike about his game, man. He's savvy. He's got awesome hands. He's in and out of his breaks quickly.
Yep. And he's going to run probably a 4.34, 4.35, 4.4 tops.
No, he's not. He might. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I've said this.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into the 4.3s. He'll be in the 4.4s at worst.
I've kind of hinted at this to you, is that I've done a little bit of a Odunze, a little bit more than a little bit of a Odunze tape or Odunes tape. What is it? Odunes?
I always thought it was Odunze, but it could be Odunes.
Okay, I think it's Odunze. I think I'm probably wrong. I should get that right. Anyway, I don't know how amazingly impressed I am. I think, and the reason is sometimes when I'm like having my concerns about it, I'll go back and watch guys that like I think probably played similar in college that maybe ended up being a bust, like Kill Harry or Jalen Rager or something, and be like, was the stuff that they're doing really good, like stuff that like other guys were doing really good, like the contested catch stuff. But either way, I don't know how completely sold I am on Odunes, and I'm starting to really, really like McConkey. And I'm afraid if McConkey tests that fast, that I'm just going to be like, why don't you just take him in the top 10?
The only thing is he's like 187 pounds. So he kind of needs to run like a 4.3, 4.4 because.
Is he 187? Is that what he is?
187.
Well,
so he's
what was Jordan Addison?
He was smaller than that. Jordan Addison was like 170.
69 or something crazy.
Something like that. Yeah, no. It's becoming less of a worry for me with wide receiver size. I remember I knocked Tank Dell a lot last year because he was so small.
I was slightly scared about even Zay Flowers.
Yeah, and obviously I shouldn't have done that because Tank Dell looked good, really good.
Jordan Addison 173.
Yeah, so Jordan Addison's smaller. Like I'm starting to like with the way the game's changing and the new rules and everything, wide receiver size doesn't matter to me as much. And like also like we kind of talked about this like in the 2010s with the Bears, you have like a designated X receiver, and he's going to line up on the line of scrimmage, and he's going to run through you, and like that just doesn't exist. I mean that does exist, but it doesn't. It's like it's more. There's a lot more pre-snap movements, a lot more creative ways to get guys open. So even if you do have a guy who can't beat press or struggles against press, you can still find creative ways to get them moving and get them out in the field. And once Ladd McConkey, Tank Dell, are off the line of scrimmage, they're going to win their
Totally.
route more often than not because they're just such good route runners and they're so fast.
And with the way that they're like the way the game is kind of developing, where you could be like a Tyler Lockett or a Tyreek Hill, where you're not going to get your lick on me. I'm just going to dive and hit the ground, or I'm going to run out of bounds. Like, you're just not going to hit me. And like, that's kind of fine. Where like, as before, maybe there was like a stigma about playing like that. Like, if you're Tyreek Hill, like, you can go a season getting hit 50 times total. Yeah. And it's not like the same. Whereas if you were a 175 pounder in the early 2000s, just getting walloped 100 times in a season, if you were the number one receiver, like, you can get away with like not taking that many shots.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I don't want my wide receivers to be like 220. I don't need it unless you're DK Metcalf. I don't want it.
Yeah, or whatever AJ Brown weighs. Brown
or AJ Brown. Like, they're outliers, but for the most part,
you want pounds. Like an army of Malik Neighbors and an army of DJ Moores, like 6 foot 200, 6'1", 195. Those are the best receivers in the world, are that size.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, it doesn't really worry me as much. All right.
What else? We're through the Hall of Famers, the Senior Bowl.
We're gonna do Bears QB rumors. So we've had a lot of those this week.
Yeah.
Just kind of talking just in general. I mean, we don't have to get too into the weeds, but like a lot of things have come out in the last week that contribute. So like one day it was Caleb Williams. It was what's his name?
Colin
Cowherd saying Caleb Williams' camp doesn't want to come to Chicago. Then the next day it was Colin Cowherd walking that back, and Adam Schefter and all these people saying that's not the truth. And then the next day it was, you can get a second round pick for Fields. And then the next day it was, the Bears are might still keep Fields. And we're just in this like 4-day cycle.
And then Schefter came out and was like, no, you're going to get the biggest haul you've ever seen for a jump from 1 to 2 from Washington.
Yep.
It was almost like, yo, shut up, Adam. Yep. What are you saying? What if Poles hears you?
Yeah. No, it's just crazy how we're just in this cycle where one day it's one thing and the next day it's refuted, and the next day it's another thing, and the next day it's refuted. It's like, why can we just like stop and like just see what happens? Like,
totally. There's no patience, and there won't be. Yeah. I almost tweeted this today. Bears Twitter right now is like approaching a level right now where I think a lot of people probably do need to sign off for 3 months and just breathe.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is like maybe some people are I think honestly not the guys that are like excited about the draft. It's the people that are obsessed with what about this with Fields and with the Fields and the Caleb Williams talk, because it's like, man, you could make a million reasons why the reading the tea leaves points toward Fields, or a million reasons why reading the tea leaves points towards Caleb Williams. But the fact is like, honestly, in a lot shorter time than I think these people realize, we're going to have our answer. Fields might even be traded if that's our answer sooner than later. So like, we don't need to speculate as much as we are.
Right.
And it's I think a lot of people are starting to get worked up about it. It seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everything, like even if it's not a quarterback related thing, like it's the Bears, like with the Shane Waldron, like for example, Shane Waldron got hired, and then immediately within 5 minutes, there was one person who had, Shane Waldron being hired means Caleb Williams is the guy. And then there was another person who said, no, Shane Waldron being hired means Justin Fields is the guy. And like, we're connecting the dots that don't need to be connected just yet. Just let it play out.
I know. And it's like, I think it's okay to say those things if they're true. It's okay to be like, well, that there is some smoke there. Right. And like the best people are the people that like point out the things, like the smoke signals that really matter.
Right.
But I think to say, oh, this happened. I think it's okay to say the ifs. I think it's not okay to say the then. Right now, like people being like, they did this, so then this has to be the case. It's like
this is confirmed. Yeah.
No, we just don't know. Okay, we just don't. And honestly, it's a good position to be in, because if we like in a vacuum, if I could say to you, hey, what if we're going to start this offseason with Justin Fields coming into another season? We're going to have an unbelievable amount of resources to build around him, and we're going to go into the year next year with some continuation at head coach after a hot finish. You'd be like, cool, perfect. That sounds pretty all right. Or if we said whatever it's going to be with Caleb Williams, no, we're going to add that and another top 10 pick to an already surging team, and we have a continuation of head coach, you'd be fine with that as well. One of those is 100% going to be true. But people just need to relax until we find out what it is going to be. You can have your speculation about what's going to be better. Me and you do. We're pretty forward with the fact that we think the Bears should reset the quarterback situation and draft Caleb Williams. If we thought that there was a quarterback that was closer, maybe we'd entertain the idea of a trade. And maybe by the time the draft comes around, maybe we'll flip-flop. I was telling you before the draft that I'm starting to keen on Jaden Daniels enough that I could understand the idea about moving on and stuff in different ways. And I can understand why the people that are fans of the Bears and so passionate about them can say, hey, I think this is what's best and this is what we should do. And then get on Twitter and try and tell everyone the reasons that they're right. But like, just take a deep breath.
And like to that point, like what I think another part is, I think a lot of people who are like very pro Fields are like, oh, you just want to draft a quarterback no matter what because you hate Justin Fields. We don't hate Justin Fields. I love Justin Fields. If this quarterback class was different, if Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jane Daniels were in this quarterback class, if this was like a few years ago where Kenny Pickett was the top quarterback, I'd be like, trade the pick, get a haul, get MHJ or whatever, or just take MHJ at 1, whatever it is, and we'll give Fields one more chance. But it's just, it's not like I'm saying we have to take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. I think we should take a quarterback because I think Caleb Williams is really, really good. And that's what it comes down to. It's not a Fields hate.
It's a lot of fun to watch.
It is a lot of fun to watch. But then at the same time, I did my Caleb Williams scouting report. Didn't mention Fields in my report at all. Well, maybe I did. but then people were like, well, you're a Fields hater because you put out this scouting report on Caleb Williams. I'm like, well, no, I'm an NFL draft guy. I watch all the prospects, so I'm going to give my thoughts on them. So, like, I'm not a Fields hater. I like Justin Fields.
Can't tell you how much we remain to be and will be going forward Justin Fields fans on the CFC Connection podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think if he can go to the Steelers, I think is a good fit for him with Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith could put together an offense very similar to what he did when he was in Tennessee with Ryan Tannehill, with a lot of play action rollouts and getting him on the move. I think Arthur Smith could do really good things with him. So I'm kind of hoping we trade with the Steelers because I think that's a really good fit. Atlanta as well, just because he's from Atlanta. I'm sure
they have fun players on that offense. And
they have some good weapons. I think those two spots are pretty good. I think we could probably rule out the Raiders trading for him since they hired Luke Getsy. I don't see that happening.
I completely agree.
I don't think Luke Getsy wants him. I don't think Justin Fields wants to.
No, I think they're both trying to wash their hands of the situation, and I think that's a good professional move of the both of them.
Yeah, so
I think there's a lot of questions about, was the sputtering of the Bears offense Fields or Getsy, and they won't escape it if they don't escape each other.
Right. And you can have your ideas. You can watch all the tape you want, and you have ideas. And the answer is it was both of them. Like, you can't just go into when the offense looks that bad, it's not one person. It's the offensive coordinator, it's the quarterback, it's the O-line, it's the wide receivers. It's all of it kind of tied into one, and that does all come back to the offensive coordinator. But it also it comes back to the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. The offensive coordinator is designing the offense, but those two are what makes it run.
I never really had issues with Getsy's play design as much as I had issues with Getsy's play call. And that made me wonder how much of that was his relationship to the players or how much trust he had in them. So, and how much, I thought maybe he could do better if he thought he could do better.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that we'll be able to see through those two probably not having to work together anymore.
Yeah. And if Luke Getsy goes, if in Las Vegas, if he puts together a good offense, that doesn't mean necessarily that he wasn't the problem in Chicago. And same thing with vice versa. If Justin Fields goes to the Steelers and looks really good, that doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't the problem in Chicago. There's a nuance to it. I don't think he was put in a great position by Luke Getsy, but I also think he missed some throws that he shouldn't have. He held on to the ball too long. And maybe that's what they were telling him behind the scenes. I don't know, but it seems odd that they would tell him to hold on to the ball too long and take a sack. So there's blame to go around a lot of different places for the Bears offense. That sure, it's not one singular person. It's basically the point I'm trying to make.
No. And that's okay too. I think it's fair to say, things just didn't work out in the Justin Fields era for the Bears, unfortunately. And then we've kind of said this before. Because of that, I think it's time and to move on. And I wouldn't ever look at the stuff you hear in the media about not wanting to go to Chicago from Caleb Williams with any grains of salt at the moment. The vast majority of signal that we've seen this offseason has been that if Caleb Williams is drafted by Chicago, he will stroll into Chicago as the starting quarterback happily and ready to go to try and build something. Yeah. There has been way too much very purposeful and legitimate comments and quotes made to the media from people in the know, and even from people from his camp, and even from people that even the day before were saying the opposite, saying that Caleb Williams is totally fine anywhere he goes, wink wink, Chicago. Yeah. I don't think there's any if you're not drafting Caleb Williams, it's not because you're worried that he won't go. He's going to pull an Eli Manning. When was the last time that ever even happened, if we're being honest?
Eli Manning. That was the last time it happened. Was it 2004 or something like that?
Yeah.
But, I mean, this whole thing, with Kyle Hurd, that broke when we were at the Senior Bowl. So Q and Robert and I were panicking, obviously. So we were sitting there in our Airbnb just panicking, going through all the scenarios. And we kind of talked ourselves down a little bit. But when it first came out, it was just panic. But the way I look at it is I 100% believe that there is something with Caleb Williams that he is or was at some point unsure about Chicago, because this doesn't just come out of nowhere. At some point it was said, it might even still be a little bit the truth, but it doesn't sound like he's ruled out Chicago at all. And the way I look at it is, even if he has some doubts about coming to Chicago for whatever reason, which I don't get, but for whatever reason, let's say he does, you can't tell me that Ryan Poles, Ian Cunningham, Kevin Warren can't get in a room with Caleb Williams, lay out a plan for him, and convince him that there's a better spot to go than Chicago. Because the Commanders get in a room with him, they cannot convince him that their plan is better than Chicago. We have DJ Moore. We have the 9th overall pick. We have $60 million in cap space. I mean, you could be concerned. You were Chicago. You could say, oh, the Bears never have a good quarterback. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed all the great Washington Commander quarterbacks that have come out in the last.
It's also listen, but that's where you step in.
Exactly. Yes. No, you're right. Okay, we have it. The bar for you to be successful in Chicago is so low. All you have to do is just clear this low bar and you'll be a god.
It's also we don't need to petition to you that we're going to be the best fit for you in the NFL. We're a pretty good NFL team with 2 top 10 picks, one of them with your name on it. You're coming to town, bro.
Yeah, you're coming whether you like it or not. Get it.
Yeah, just come. It's Chicago. It's pretty sick. Yeah. You're going to like it.
So that's if that is the direction they go, I am not worried about.
No, I think
pulling an Eli Manning.
I think the logic of it is it hasn't happened in a long time. The Bears aren't bad, and they're an awesome sports city that loves football. There's no reason he shouldn't like it. Not to mention, he would be a god here. And there's really good smoke from Rappaport, from Shefty, from Daniel Jeremiah, all in the last week saying, I mean, even today, Lou Glazer?
Jay Glazer?
Jay Glazer was like, no, Chicago was like he was talking directly to the Caleb camp. He's like, you guys want to go to Chicago. There's been so much good from a lot of people in the space. The only worry Bears fans have to worry about is the decision making of the people in charge. And it does seem to be that, the smoke is that they're on the same page as, well, actually, as I'm learning, not everybody, but as at least me and Steve. It seems like Chicago, the opinion around the league is that Chicago is pretty interested in drafting Caleb Williams with that first pick.
Yeah, I do ultimately think that's what the direction it goes, but we got a lot more offseason to talk about that probably. So let's move on because I want to keep this to an hour. Let's do the Senior Bowl. Let's talk about the Super Bowl. Sorry, Super Bowl obviously this weekend.
Do you have a favorite?
49ers.
Do you have someone you
I don't know.
Win?
I think the Chiefs are going to win.
I think the Chiefs are going to win too.
I don't think the 49ers offensive line is going to be able to hold up against Chris Jones and the Chiefs defensive line. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't look this up before, but I'm pretty sure the 49ers are favored, right? It's like a 2.5-point spread.
Something like that.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
I haven't placed any bets yet. I always do place
You're
bets.
going to give Patrick Mahomes 2 points versus Brock Purdy?
Yeah. So if that's still the case, and again, I haven't checked in like a week, but if that's still the case, I'm taking Chiefs money line for sure. Because I think they're going to win outright.
I don't want them to win. I was saying to you before that I think you really enter really, really rarefied air with the third Super Bowl win. Like you instantly surpass some all-time greats. And I don't know if I'm ready for Mahomes to be that. Yeah. I don't know why, but change is weird, and he really starts to etch his face on the like.
Yeah, like I know why you don't.
There's someone on the Mount Rushmore of football quarterbacks that gets like carved off tomorrow if Patrick Mahomes wins.
I know why you don't want Pat Mahomes to win a Super Bowl, because the Bears could have easily had Pat Mahomes and we went in a different direction.
No, honestly, God, I'll tell you what. It isn't about that. What it feels more like, I said this to my friends the other day, is that I loved Tom Brady near the start of his football career. And in the middle of his football career, I hated Tom Brady. And near the end of his career, I was like, God, like I was blessed to be able to watch this man play football. I am like securely in my middle, like, would you just fuck off stage of Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah.
He's so good. This was a down year, and he still just meandered his way into the Super Bowl pretty much effortlessly. Like,
I do.
Like, it's just insanity.
Yeah. I mean, everyone had that same. I feel like most people had that same trajectory with Tom Brady, and you're probably the first one to turn on Pat Mahomes. But if he wins another Super Bowl, yeah, everyone is going to hate him. Like he will be hated for the rest of his
career. Like he did, like, I'm happy to be the villain, and I was kind of like, him saying that was kind of annoying. I was like, honestly, that's a pretty badass thing for him to say, because he's right. Because it is the Tom Brady effect. Nobody wants you to win.
No one, he'll be, and the Chiefs fans will love him as they should. But no, every other fan base will hate that guy. I fucking hate that guy. He's gonna win again. Like, no, stop. And then like, there's always.
I guess I want San Fran to win, and I don't. Like, I don't want really Brock Purdy to go win a Super Bowl. Like, winning a Super Bowl should be tough. Like, and it is. So I don't love either of these options, but I definitely don't want it to be Mahomes. So it's like, I guess the San Fran's got a cool history. Purdy's a good dude. Purdy, like, everything that you hear about Purdy, other people say. He goes about his business. He's a good football quarterback. Fuck it. Go get yourself a ring, Brock. It's a cool dude. I don't know why, honestly, it's not a cooler story. I don't know why I don't love Brock Purdy. Why isn't he a cool underdog?
Yeah.
Is it because everybody's like arguing if he's a hero or not?
People love the underdog story. Like Pat Mahomes had a little bit of an underdog story early on in his career, and now everyone hates him. So if Purdy wins the Super Bowl, people will start hating him even more. I know there are people who hate Purdy regardless, but people will hate him even more next year.
They'll hate him because they're like, he's not perfect. It's like,
yeah. They'll hate him because every NFL team had a chance to draft him, and every NFL team passed on him.
49ers didn't draft him 6 times.
True. But, what was I just going to say? I can't remember. Yeah, Brock Purdy.
I think the Chiefs, it felt like everybody thought the Ravens were going to win, and that was like a really, really Patrick Mahomes-y feeling moment. It was like, oh, no. And it feels like it again, man. And it feels like, I'll be honest, a big part of the reason I don't want the Chiefs to win is I don't want to fucking deal with the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift shit.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You don't want Taylor. I was going to ask if you wanted Taylor Swift to win.
No, I don't. Maybe because, listen, if they're actually going to end up together, those two, there will come a time when Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are going to have their Super Bowl moment. It's like almost too delicious if it happens this year.
Could you imagine like how much the internet would break if Travis Kelce like proposed to Taylor Swift after winning a Super Bowl like on the field? Like,
oh, dude,
the internet would break.
No, it'd be even crazier when you find out 9 months from now there's a little Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift baby and the whole world's going to explode.
I see. Like, I'm not a Taylor Swift fan. Like I don't listen to her music or anything, but like I can't find myself getting mad at her because she's just like there. Like,
Honestly,
not her fault.
she's actually lovely, and her music's fine.
Yeah, it's not for us. You know, she doesn't make music for white guys. You know, it is what it is.
Apparently, she puts on an amazing show.
Yeah.
I have no hate for Taylor Swift. And I actually love Travis Kelce. I love Travis Kelce. I think he's a cool guy. I think he's unreal at the game. I just think it's like I honestly just think the NFL wants it so much. And like there's been so much made about like that relationship that it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes you like it's like if there was no consequences and you walked by a glass house with a rock, you'd just throw it through it.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it happen. I want to see that get. Also, I saw a lasting moment. I saw a really cool clip today of when George Kittle lost the Super Bowl versus the Chiefs. Did you see this?
Mm-hmm.
And he was standing there on the sideline, and he was like, "I'm gonna be fucking back here."
Oh yeah,
he's like, I'm gonna be back here, and I'm gonna be back here, and I'm gonna be back with a vengeance.
Kittle's fun. I mean, both tight ends are fun. I would be excited to see Kittle win it. The other thing about like Kittle's fun. I like him. I want him to win a Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey's fun. Brandon
Kyle Shanahan has been.
Kyle
Shanahan has been up double digits in 2 fourth quarters of Super Bowls.
Yeah,
and he has no rings.
We'll see. If that happens again. I'm just picturing them being up and then Pat Mahomes doing Pat Mahomes stuff to steal it away from him and just. I think Kyle Shanahan would just have to retire at that point. Just like I'm done. Dude, I'm never going to win one.
He wouldn't be like the amount of like the Kirk Cousins level of like this guy just can't win the big one, but like to the nth degree would be so poisonous. Yeah. I think unfortunately I think the Chiefs do it, but I would love if the 49ers could show the NFL that putting a good team together with good coaches is enough. You don't need the best quarterback in football.
Yeah. I'm in a good spot because I don't really care who wins, so I'm going to place my bets and then just root for that, just root to win money. That's the best way to experience the Super Bowl. Eat a bunch of food, win some money, hopefully. And even if you lose money, it doesn't matter.
Enjoy the commercials.
Yeah.
It is the best sporting event of the year. It's also like the most watched musical event of the year, which is crazy.
Who's the halftime show? Is it Usher?
Usher. And you can bet on what you think his first song will be.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Yeah.
To be honest, I couldn't tell you an Usher song. Not my cup of tea.
Oh, really? Oh, you'd like some. You'll.
I'm sure
when you see it, you'll
exactly. You're like, oh,
this is a great song.
Yeah, that's fun. That happens every Super Bowl halftime show. I'm like, I don't really care about this person, and then I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, I like that song.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Anything else? Yeah, we're good.
I think so. We'll have a Super Bowl champion after by next week's show, and next week's show will be like
maybe we'll do
in the off season.
In the off season, maybe we'll do like some free agent stuff. We've been draft heavy.
Yep.
So maybe we'll do. I don't know. We'll talk about.
I haven't even really looked at free agency much. I mean, I know the spots on the roster that I think the Bears would be smart to throw some veteran talent into, and I think. You and I are usually in agreement that like you kind of want to add at the value positions in the draft and like kind of backfill your roster through free agency. But I do know there's a lot of young cool talent heading into free agency too. So it'd be interesting to see how the Bears play it out. They have like you said $60 million, and we should have more pretty quickly with some cuts that I think we all expect to happen. So that'll be a cool one.
Yeah, it'll be a good opportunity for both of us to we'll study up on the free agent class and we'll fill everyone in next week.
Yep.
So thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, follow us on Twitter. Do whatever you can do to help us and support us. We really appreciate it. So we'll talk to everyone next week. Free agency, Super Bowl stuff. Everyone, bear down.
Bear down. And
congratulations to Devin Hester, Juice Pepper, Steve Michael for Hall of Fame.
Ming